yourself, can
welcome. You? Family home evening.
With Bad Mormons.
I'm Charlotte.
I'm Mandi.
We are a couple of sisters who are not very good at being Mormons.
Hence the bad Mormon part. Sorry, Charlotte just convinced me to drink a shot of whiskey before we started recording, and
I'm a pusher. What can I say?
Guess who gets to benefit from it?
Me.
You, the
and
internet.
You. And you. And you. And you. And you.
So welcome to our show.
For those who... Oh my god, this champagne's going to open itself. Hold
Here we
on.
go.
I didn't...
Here we go.
Jesus!
We like to drink while we record this podcast.
I was going to say, for those who have never listened in before, we get drunk and tell you stories of shit that we did. Sometimes drunk, most of the time drunk, sometimes on drugs, and all in all, usually bad times or good times.
This particular episode, we're recording video along with it for our patrons, so I'm really glad we got to capture that moment.
I literally did nothing. I took off the screw part, and all of a sudden I just saw it moving up on its own. I'm like, okay, well, this is not the timing I was going to open the champagne, but alas, here we are.
Here we go. Strap in, Sunday. Game on. So, while you're pouring, I'd like to give a little cheers, a little shout out to our patrons.
Hey, patrons!
Who we love so much. Thank you so much
Thank you for being you.
For your support. Ooh, is that a rosé champagne?
It is a rosé champagne. This is a Magnum bottle I got from Trader Joe's. It was $12.99, so I think I should probably get a couple $100 worth.
That's a bargain. You're a bargain shopper.
I am a bargain shopper. If there's one thing that I am, it's a bargain shopper.
Fantastic. Ooh, I can't wait to try it. Well, cheers.
Cheers. About 105 degrees outside. So the champagne's a really nice touch.
Yeah, it's very warm today. Weather here's so weird, but this isn't a weather podcast.
No, sure isn't.
This is a drinking, bitching about politics, bitching about religion, and telling stupid stories podcast.
Yeah!
And we're going to try to make it fun this week because we all need a little, fun, good time, light in our lives, especially after this fucked up monstrosity of a week.
It was not a great week.
It was not, which is one of the reasons why we're recording this on a Sunday, because every day I've just couldn't bring myself to gather my thoughts around how I wanted to say anything or what I wanted to say. So I was like, fuck it. The timing wasn't right. But I put on my makeup, put on my fancy outfit, poured some champagne, and now the timing's right.
Absolutely. I just, could never eloquently express my distaste and trust of the government and things that happen. So I just, ramble. You're welcome, Internet.
Yeah, fuck everyone right now.
All right, well, let's go to repentance, shall we?
Do you have anything to repent for?
No, never. I'm perfect in every way.
I was actually trying to think if I do, and I don't think I do at the moment, which is unusual, because generally what happens when you record a podcast drunk and you just say whatever you want, a lot of times things come out wrong. However, I think we did pretty good last week.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet.
There was I guess we should tell people who are regular listeners of the show, there was some kind of a strange air raid happening.
Oh, right.
As we shut down the last episode. So obviously we're fine. But yeah, we live pretty close to Camp Pendleton.
So yeah, sometimes we get to hear bombs going off and helicopters coming through. I usually think it's aliens when it's the middle of the night. I'm like, oh god, here they come.
And one day it's gonna be.
Who says it hasn't been already? You don't know.
I feel like we should have got some water out here too. It's so hot.
Nah, you'll be fine.
More champagne. More champagne.
I was going to say, I do want to give a big shout out to our listener, Aliska, good friend of the podcast. Gave us a very cool family home evening chalkboard.
It's like, imagine live, laugh, love boards.
Yes. So it's like a chalkboard. They have family home evening on it, and then underneath of it has things like activities, treats, lessons, scripture, prayer, and song. And then it's surrounded by a wood frame.
The whole premise of this podcast is making fun of family home evening because it's, whatever. We grew up. We never were Mormons as adults, but as kids, we did all the kid Mormon stuff because our family was Mormon. And to see it written out like this, where it says, song, was like, do you ever remember having I mean,
No.
we had family home evening, probably when you were too little to remember.
I don't really remember going to one.
But we didn't sing. We certainly had prayer. Scriptures, possibly, but I don't remember that. Lessons, no. Activities.
Board games?
Board games, yeah. And treats, obviously, yes, because
Rice Krispie treats are the shit.
And food, that's what we did was food.
we like food.
We like food a lot. It wasn't good food. It was low quality.
It was Jell-O with carrots in it.
From the food storage basement. But it was food. Actually, I didn't really get anything ready for Mormon Corner other than this lovely description of what family home evening is supposed to be.
Right. Well, I was trying to find something nice on the internet, and I came up with a few things. One was a guy who was talking about his racist Mormon Christmas. And I was like, okay. And so I read it. It was really funny. He was talking about how the bishop had pulled him aside at 10 years old and that he was going to be the banker for this nativity, like, set thing or whatever. Like, this very mostly Mormon, I don't know how to say it, but like super, super Mormon family was going to play all the parts of like baby Jesus and Mary and Joseph and blah, blah, blah.
So it's like a live nativity scene.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it was like a play, kind of.
Okay.
Anyways, he was going to be the banker, and it was his job that he needed to get a bunch of rocks and spray paint them gold. And he just talks about how poorly he did and like got himself high on the spray paint at 10 years old because he didn't open up the garage door, and that he didn't put down anything on the ground when he was spray painting the rocks, so then the garage floor is all gold. Tools, he's like, my lungs. And so he was talking about how this lady had something like 9 kids, and so when she was birthing out Jesus, like, he's like, it was the most method acting I had ever seen in my life. Robert De Niro's got nothing on her.
Oh my God.
And then it's like, you could hear this giggling from inside where her pregnant belly was, and they pulled out one of their younger children who was like maybe 1,
That's horrifying.
Right? And he pretty much talks about how horrifying it was. But I had to read it quickly, so I didn't get the whole racist part of it, but I just thought that was fucking hilarious. And that his dad went out to go smoke a cigarette, and he went out with him. He's like, is that what childbirth is really like? And he's like, yeah, pretty much.
Wait, Dad was smoking a cigarette? Mormon dad?
And he said they were very bad at being Mormon, so they would have been our people.
Got it.
It's like, we would never be the, super Mormon family, but we were united in our, what do you call it, in our lack of, being just semi-okay Mormons. Anyway, it was pretty funny. I'll probably link to it so people can read it on their own should they find that humorous, but I thought that was great. And
That's funny.
Then I was like, there's a whole bunch of stuff on Christmas, and I was like, family home evening ideas, and they're talking about like, one lesson you can have at family home evening is get a box, cut it just large enough to put your hand through it, put some sort of present inside, so that when you can feel the present, but in order to get your hand back, you have to let the present go.
What the?
And then there's some scripture that goes along with it. I'm like, this is just, like, I could maybe make fun of it, but this is just going to be a lot of work.
You know what I immediately thought of was it The Conjuring, or no, one of the Annabelle movies with the feely mealy bops, or the
right.
you know what I mean? Where
terrifying.
Yeah. Anyways,
terrifying.
Dang, I wish we could edit this because that'll give me something to repent for next week.
There you go.
What's that movie with the family home evening game? Except for
it wasn't Mormon.
You die.
And you die from it. No, I think it was. I think it was the newest Conjuring Coming Home, whatever. But we'll have to. We'll do a little bit more research on that.
Yeah, I love those movies, so I usually know them all, but that shot of whiskey and this champagne that's getting rapidly warm is starting to
We'll have to get some ice cubes.
Yeah. Well, we got it in the bottle over there.
Yeah, but now that's covered in salt. Because we're like, we need to keep the champagne cold.
Hey, listen, listener. That should be an extra drink for anyone playing the drinking game. Listen, listener. I don't know if you knew this, but we're going to give you a hot tip on keeping beverages cold. If you add a little, so instead of just putting it in some ice, if you add a little water, not a lot of water, it should be 80% ice, 20% water, and some salt, and I apologize, I don't know exactly how much salt, it will bring the temperature down to freezing.
Oh, right.
So I don't know the chemical reaction, I'm not that smart, but there's something that happens that'll keep your shit cold.
Right, so I got a pasta bucket, filled it with ice and water, and I did about 4 grinds from our Himalayan salt grinder, And, but I'm just saying we can't put those ice cubes in our champagne.
I see.
They're salty.
Salty, yes, that wouldn't be good. Anyway, I feel like that kind of goes into Mormon Corner, too, because survival, you know. We never actually I've never even broached all the survival stuff that we did as kids. Like, the Boy Scouts did most of it, but the Girl Scouts did some, too. Oh. Like, just for future episodes.
I was never a part of any of that, so I don't know.
I can build a snow cave. I know how to get out of an avalanche. What? Shit like that.
Oh, God, new segment.
Survivalist stories. Oh, and then we could bring Mom and the compound into it. Oh, God.
That would be fun.
We just renewed ourselves for another season. Oh, speaking of, this is the 76th episode of Season Infinity, by the way.
Fabulous.
What's happening for cool shit?
I mean, there's not a whole lot of cool shit going on. A lot of terrible things.
I remember one.
Motherfucker.
I remember one cool thing that happened this week.
Oh, good. What was it?
Think.
Oh my God, Ghostbusters!
I know.
It was so good.
It was so good.
You know what? Yeah, fuck that Kyle fucking fuckface.
Yeah, we're not to him yet.
We'll talk about Ghostbusters and how they fucking redeemed themselves.
Yeah.
And actually, to be fair, I feel like the Ghostbusters franchise hasn't ever done anything wrong. The whole Melissa McCarthy movie was a fine movie if you just consider it a movie. It was a shitty Ghostbusters movie. So just like the prequels to Star Wars, I don't consider that a Ghostbuster movie.
It's an homage to Ghostbusters.
It's a fanfare of Ghostbusters, but it's not a Ghostbusters film.
So, if you haven't heard, Ghostbusters Afterlife is this has been on deck. It had been filmed several years ago, and it was on deck to be released last year, but because of COVID and nobody was going out to the theaters, they were like, they didn't want to just, put it straight out to streaming. Like, they wanted it to be a movie theater experience, so they're like, we'll wait and release it when it's time. Right. Which turned out for, all of us to be like way fucking longer than anybody anticipated this pandemic to be going on.
Right.
But so now, it's different in different parts of the world, but, where we live in Southern California and Orange County, we're pretty much, our vaccination rates are high enough and our community spread of the virus is low enough that we can kind of go out and do what we want. We don't really need to wear masks anymore. We don't have to show a vaccination card to go to a restaurant, which is happening in some other places.
Los Angeles is making it do it, but not here in Orange County.
Honolulu, right. Same thing. Las Vegas. Actually, Las Vegas might not be anymore. But anyways, we can go out to movies and stuff, so... This is the first movie that we've been to since the pandemic started 2 years ago.
And frankly, I don't go to the movie theater anymore anyways, because movie theaters, God, people just won't stop talking, they're munching in your ear, it's fucking awful. But this was worth going to a theater for. Well,
and this theater that we went to, I agree with you on a lot of those counts, but I still love to go to the movies anyways, I always have. But we went to this theater, which... it was my second time to this theater, and I don't know how to pronounce it because it's like some French sounding pronunciation, but it's like Cinepolis or Cineopolis or something like that. It's expensive enough. It's like $20 a ticket. It's got the recliner seats, but it's got food and beverage service.
Yeah, it's
and
nice.
It's expensive enough that it kind of keeps the riffraff out.
Exactly.
And it's not super crowded, so you don't have those problems that you have when you pack a ton of people into a small space.
Right.
So I feel like that was the perfect way to see it, and I highly, highly recommend seeing it on the big screen if you're into that, because it was so, so, so good.
I liked it so much, I do intend on either going tonight or tomorrow night and
we should go
watching
tonight.
it again. I'm down for it, because if you have an AMC theater near you, apparently they have an Ecto-One popcorn holder that you can get, and I'm pretty sure it's probably limited, so if we don't go this weekend, we probably will never get one. So we will be heading out to Tustin to go see Ghostbusters again, because I am kind of, I don't want to say a cynic, but like, I will tear movies apart for the stupidest thing, because it's what I like to do. But this one, I could think of 3 things that I had comments on, but not enough for me to even complain about it. It was just like, no, you fucking nailed it. Good way to put some thought and effort into a movie. Good job, guys. It is possible. It can be done.
Yeah, it was great. And also, we should probably mention that the writer/director of the movie was Jason Reitman, which is Ivan Reitman's son.
Who directed and produced the first Ghostbusters. Right. And so for those who aren't gigantic Ghostbusters fans, go back, watch the first Ghostbusters. You don't even need to watch the second one, because this this could very well be a sequel to the first one.
Yeah.
You know, the second one's great. Watch it, whatever. But for me, what I consider throwaway dialogue in the first movie, this whole movie is based on that throwaway dialogue, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
They did a really, really, really good job.
And one other thing too, just before we close this one out, is there is mid end credit sequence and there's a post end credit sequence, which we didn't stay for because they were kind of cleaning up the theater around us, and I was like, and the house lights were totally up, and I was like, well, they wouldn't have we saw the one end credit. I was like, they're not going to have two if these guys are cleaning up, so we left, and then we started looking on YouTube for Easter eggs and all the fun stuff that we may have missed, and sure as shit, there was an end post-credit sequence. I was like, turn it down, shut it down, we gotta go to the movie theater and see it properly.
So yes, I'm excited to go again.
Ghostbusters is one of those movies too. It's up there with my top 5 favorites. That is one of the only, actually I think that is the only movie I could recite to you, sight unseen, verbatim, start to finish. Like, I could quote the entire movie for you on the podcast right now.
Start.
Without a mistake.
Opening scene. Library.
I want you to tell me what you think it is. Is it a star? It is a star. Very good. That's 5 for 5. You can't see these, can you? No. You're not cheating me, are you? No, I swear they're just coming to me. That's not exactly perfect, but that's a good.
It's wonderful.
It's pretty close to the beginning line.
So I was talking to our friend Aliska, who gave us this sweet family home evening thing, placard, I should say. She showed me that one of the designers for pinup vixen or pinup clothing, she broke away and did doing her own clothing line, and she has a lot of Ghostbusters clothes, and I wasn't even going to tell you about it. I was just going to order it so you could be super, super jealous of it.
Hey, go fuck yourself.
But I'll let you know about it, because there's a tan jumpsuit with Ghostbusters on it, and it's in the mail for me now.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That sounds fucking fantastic.
Right? Anyway, so yeah. If you want some swag, I go onto that lady's website, which I'll repent for next week.
Let me write that down. Lady website. Let's see if we can remember what that means by the end of this bottle of champagne.
Fabulous.
Okay, what's next?
Okay, it's Michelin Pit?
Oh! It's, yeah, I actually follow this lady. It's, Micheline, I think is her name.
Makes more sense.
Micheline Pitt.
Okay, so that's where you go buy all the swag.
Yeah, she makes good stuff. Her stuff's expensive.
Yeah, it was $150 for my jumpsuit.
But I have bought a few things from them, and it's all been super, super flattering.
Oh, that's nice.
And they have an array of sizes, too.
Oh, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to our new segment, which was coined by a listener, called This Motherfucker.
This Motherfucker.
This Motherfucker. I'm not quite sure how I want the intonation to be. I think it's more like
This Motherfucker.
Yeah, it could go several different ways. But this week it's This Motherfucker. So, here's my thoughts on this. Before we just jump right into it, obviously the Kyle Rittenhouse trial has been big in the media. Everybody has an opinion about it. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time just rehashing what our opinions are, because anybody who listens to this knows. I would hope most of the world would know, and that this is not a surprise to anyone. Excuse me. Sorry, can't edit this. However, I've been posting some things on our Instagram account with hashtags that I don't normally use, and I always kind of do that to try to like poke the bear. Like if I post something that's like making fun of Donald Trump, I'll be like MAGA, or I'll use their hashtags, right? And so I've been posting things about this trial coming up, and one of them, I looked for like Nazi or neo-Nazi or anything about white supremacy, and those hashtags don't really exist. Not that they don't exist, but they're not auto-populated within the platform for good reason, right? But there is one that I found that's hashtag white is right. And I was like, oh, that sounds like some white supremacy bullshit.
Right.
So I used that one, and I've gotten more engagement on those posts than I've ever gotten, and I want to think, just by process of elimination and the history of my using that platform, that's what they're there for. And those are the people that are fighting. So I kind of called that out on the post. I was like, raise your hand if you're here for the white supremacy party or whatever. Not exactly that, but go to our Instagram if you're curious, because there's a lot of haters.
That. Yeah, and I was like, oh, dang, Mandy, what are you doing?
Dude, and it's kind of good because, well,
Sorry.
to engage, to like have a discussion with people. I will say that there's actually one person that I engaged with on that thread, and I'm trying to engage respectfully but firmly, and I'm not, you don't want to call people names because that's not going to get anybody anywhere. But I did actually have one person who was like, you're stupid and this post is bullshit, to respond to, well, that's actually a fair argument, which is kind of what I'm going for.
Right.
Right.
Good luck, but yeah.
Yeah. And, and you and I both know, like, fighting on social media platforms is not conductive or conducive to any sort of anything good usually.
Right.
Anyways, I could go on about that. Actually, I did want to go on about that a little bit later on in the show, but
Perfect.
But yeah, basically just, I was surprised that so many people had something to say about that post, and so I wanted to actually read you something that I read from this account on Instagram called so.informed. I had to snap it on my other phone because we're using my regular phone to record. But I read this and I was like, this is the perfect thing to come back to people. So one of the main messages I was getting on Instagram was like, this is not about white supremacy, this Kyle Rittenhouse verdict. It's not about white supremacy. It's, the people he killed were white. He's white. Like, stop making this a race issue. Over and over and over again. It was that, and then it was self-defense. Like, those are the only two things that I've gotten back, but I've gotten a lot of people giving me feedback, whether they're people or bots.
Right.
It's hard to tell. But so I read this thing and I just wanted to read it because I thought it was so awesome. So this is from So Informed. It says, white supremacy is what brought Kyle out to the streets of Kenosha that night. White supremacy is him not getting shot or even apprehended by police after he shot 3 people who were protesting against white supremacy, killing 2 of them on the street in front of the police. White supremacy is being granted bail at all. White supremacy is the media treating him as a misguided young man. White supremacy is the fact that he was lauded as a hero and offered internships by elected leaders before his trial was even over. White supremacy is never having to face consequences for his actions. White supremacy built the system in this country that protects and benefits white men like Kyle Rittenhouse.
Right. 100%.
Yeah, I feel like that sums it up.
Right.
So yeah, this is one of those things I feel like we could talk about for days and weeks and months, and it's really fucking upsetting. But to be honest, we're not surprised.
Right.
We saw it coming. And
with that fucking judge who's supposed to be, not biased on one way or another. God, what a fucking moron.
And truly, what would have been the difference if he had been convicted? It would have been like, oh, it's a show that the system works when the system doesn't fucking work.
Right.
It's like such a broader issue that no matter what the outcome would have been, it still would have been fucked up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, I agree.
I read another thing too that kind of touches on the same subject, and it's do you follow Alyssa Milano on social media?
Kind of, but not really.
Some of her stuff she posts is really poignant and pretty good. She reposted this post from Rachel Elizabeth Cargill, which was I don't know who she is. I think she's just a random citizen, but she says she posts this thing that says "Dear White People," and I actually wanted to read that too because I thought it was kind of important and it might benefit some of the people who would listen to this podcast.
Right.
She says, "Dear white people, I'm tired of hearing you say I'm shocked. I can't believe this. I had no idea. This can't be real." Right? She's like, this is, in all actuality, wildly offensive that our pain is so far off your radar that the mention of it shocks you. It's actually hurtful to know that this news that's been keeping me up all night for decades hasn't even been a topic of conversation in your world.
Right.
And that sentiment goes on and on like that. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then Alyssa Milano actually I reposted that in our stories on Instagram. So she actually put some links up to some social media sites, @ Showing Up for Racial Justice and @ Movement for Black Lives, which I started following both of those on our account. So I'm going to try to keep that kind of stuff in my feed and just keep paying attention because I don't want this to be another thing as in a long line of hundreds of other examples. You know, you could name a million of them where it's just like in the media for a minute and then next week nothing changes.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I thought that was kind of cool too.
No, that's true. I mean, it really is to the point where this isn't surprising anymore and it's not shocking. Just par for the course of awfulness.
So I think the conversation needs to be like, what do we actually do besides just, I think this podcast was a little bit part of that, like our attempt at like bringing, you know, awareness about things that
right.
we're concerned about out to the world. But is that enough? Are the people who are going to listen to our podcast, is that going to change their minds because they're already on our side?
Yeah, totally. 100, like preaching to the choir kind of a thing.
We're part of their echo chamber.
Right.
Which, I mean, God bless you guys. Thanks for that, because we need more of us, I feel like.
Right.
And I don't feel like we're outnumbered. I feel like we're the majority.
We're just not as vocal.
Yeah, but something has to be done. Action has to be taken. So that's kind of what I wanted to try to start putting a little bit more effort into, rather than just like bitching about how the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict was fucked up. Yeah, it was fucked up. Of course it was fucked up. We knew it was fucked up.
Right.
What do we do?
Right.
So anyway, this motherfucker. You know, I was actually kind of reading I was reading about sort of the, I don't want to call them Republicans. We always call them Republicans, right? We make fun of the 4 R's. Republicans. Racists. Religion.
Ron. Tiffany's neighbor Ron.
Yeah. But there's a group of those people who are not just Republicans. We've said it before. We'll say it again. We have a lot of friends that are Republicans. But they're those QAnon, Trump-worshipping, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz motherfuckers.
Right.
Who are out there just spreading hate and divisiveness for attention.
Right.
You know? And, which you could say the same thing about me. Like, this meme that I posted on our social media account was basically like, hey, here's all the things that the U.S., you know, conservative Christians and the Taliban have in common.
Right.
You know, and I listed them all. It was, you know, check our social media, you'll see, but it's like a long list of everything we bitch about all the time.
Right.
And, I started kind of like doing a little bit of a deep dive on that, and I found out some really fucking crazy shit. Like, where do I even start? Oh, here, let me look at this one. Like, I found out there's so many people who actually align with the Taliban's ideals, right? I was kind of joking about that. But there's a USA Today article that actually talks about how Matt Gaetz was like, he does a whole quote. Essentially, he describes the Taliban as a more legitimate than the last government in Afghanistan or the current government in the United States.
Jesus.
Right?
Fucking Matt Gaetz, motherfucker.
I know, dude. And Tucker Carlson said something like, it turns out that the people of Afghanistan don't actually want a gender studies symposium. They don't hate their own masculinity. They don't think they don't think it's toxic. They like the patriarchy. Some of their women like it too. So now they're getting it all back. So maybe it's possible that we failed in Afghanistan because the entire neoliberal program is grotesque.
Oh my God, someone needs to send him to go live in Afghanistan.
Dude, I'm not even kidding you. And there's like tons of this. That guy, Paul Gosar, who just posted that video of him murdering AOC for fun.
Oh, right.
And he was just censored.
Fucker. Yeah.
He actually is an ally and closely related to this guy Nick Fuentes, who runs a white supremacy organization, which I'm not going to name because I don't want to give them any airtime because fuck them.
Right.
But like they're not even, these guys, Tucker Carlson, Matt Gaetz, Paul Gosar, they're not even hiding the fact that they're aligning with these people, and you try to point that out on social media and you get your fucking head cut off.
Right.
Like, it's so infuriating to me. It's so infuriating.
I mean, God, I can kind of get, like, the whole, like, you can't be shaming guys for being guys, but it depends on what that behavior is that you're shaming. Is it inappropriately touching women who didn't give their consent? Then yeah, fuck you. That's toxic masculinity and it needs to be fucking addressed. You know, this whole boys will be boys shit. That's the kind of shit that they're talking about. Mm-hmm. What, you know, you being stronger than me, that's not anything different. It's true. Like, that's why the women and men compete differently, is because men have the hormones that make them stronger. But that's not what we're talking about. Like, that's what they're trying to make it seem like now. They're like, oh, you just hate everything about being a man. There should be no genders. And it's like, I don't believe anybody's really saying that. I mean, and if they are, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I don't know enough about it to have a real strong opinion on it.
Yeah. I just think I think they're so obviously anti-democracy, and...
Because I do have to say, like, the woke liberal bullshit, some of it is fucking bullshit. Like, you don't call them mom or mother anymore, you call it birthing person. And I'm like, I kept saying, that is fucking bullshit, that is the dumbest shit I've ever heard, and it's not real. It turns out it is fucking real. And I'm like, oh, god damn it, now you're making us all look stupid.
Yeah.
And I know you're not a big fan of Bill Maher, but he said it right when he's just like, oh, if it sounds like an Onion article, then, we've gone too far.
Yeah. But you know what? I feel like we also, just to play the opposite side of that coin, I feel like we wouldn't have to go that far if if people weren't so blatantly dehumanized and, marginalized. Like, you wouldn't have to go that far.
Right.
Couldn't we just be human beings to each other? And, if that's your preference, if you came to me and you said, I would prefer to be called birthing person, I would be like, that's weird, but I'll, if that's what you want, sure, I'll do that for you.
Right. And the only thing I could think of is if it's a transgender person who was born female and had a child, would rather be called a birthing person. Absolutely. But they're not trying to say that for every woman that's fucking given birth, they need to be called a birthing person now. Like, they took a thing and they twisted it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway. Hey, I forgot to tell you something. Let's swing it back around to cool shit, because I know we're taking it down a dark path, and I'm, like, even starting to tear up. I'm getting so mad about shit. And it might be the whiskey combined with the champagne. But I forgot to tell you during cool shit, a few episodes back, we talked about how Alex Jones had lost 2 lawsuits. That's up to 4 now that he's lost.
Fabulous.
And it's not that he lost them, it's that the judge defaulted. So basically, because he wasn't engaging in the process at all, you send them a subpoena, they don't show up. You put out a warrant, they don't show up. Whatever. That's not exactly what happened with Alex Jones.
No, I get it. It's kind of like what her mother did.
Yeah, and I'm kind of thinking about what's that racist guy that we were making fun of last week, Steve Bannon.
Right.
And all these insurrectionists who are just like, well,
I'm not going.
Yeah, I don't care if I've been subpoenaed. Fuck you. I don't have to. That kind of thing.
If you're supposed to go to court for something and you do not show up, they will automatically grant whatever it is the person who is suing you for. Yeah. They win.
Just because you're rich and have allies that are rich that turns out don't give a shit about you doesn't mean you're above the law.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, just real quick, I'm gonna read you from this is Yahoo News. So there's a lot of articles that talk about how he's in default. He's gonna have to pay restitution to at least 4 families, because essentially the lawsuit is the families have been getting death threats and their lives have been disrupted because their children were murdered at an elementary school by a gunman, and Alex Jones said that was a hoax.
Right.
And not only said that it was a hoax, but he was really propagating this into a really hurtful level by calling them crisis actors, bringing their character into play. These people who have had their children murdered.
Right, that's fucking awful.
Dude, I know. But Alex Jones actually said, there's a quote from him about this whole thing that's going on right now, and he says, which is fucking crazy. He says, if I spend my time tactically talking to HBO or talking to the Wall Street Journal or running around trying to defend myself from the fake things they've launched against me, we're going to lose the whole country and the planet. That's his response to this lawsuit. So I would just like to take a moment to say, go fuck yourself, yeah. Alex Jones. Please go away.
Don't worry, we're going to lose the planet already anyways.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother fucking podcast episode. Anyway, you think we should have a word from our sponsors?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I've got some serious swamp ass going on.
I would say let's cut that, but
not gonna happen. And we're back.
We are back.
Fresh as a daisy.
Just so lovely. Oh, I get it.
Swamp ass.
Did we just hear a commercial for Poon Powder?
I think we should. I mean, we did.
Boy, it's warm out here.
It is not cold in November.
All right. Stories. Story time.
So these stories we decided to choose to tell you this week actually don't involve much booze or being under the influence of anything at all other than being under the influence of awesome.
And standing up to the man.
Yeah, you don't have to just roll over when people try to fuck you over.
Mm-mm. Hell no. And, well, should I start or should you start?
I'll start because I'll have to bring my lawyer on board. To be fair, she is not licensed or past any bars in any states, but that's something entirely different. I don't know the legal
jargon
spewing that you have to say to be like, just so you know, I'm not representing you in any sort of blah blah blah.
I am an actor pretending to be a lawyer. Don't sue me.
Most people may have gathered I am a hairstylist, and I am an independent contractor. So what I end up doing is I rent stations out of salons, and then I just pay them rent, and they're my landlord. But in all I have my own, social media, my own brand name, all of that. So I moved into a salon that was very similar to my already chosen brand name, and I worked there for about a year. We did not end on great circumstances. I ended up putting a lot of money into her salon, and then she tried to raise my rent.
Say what the brand was, though, because it's like such a common thing.
Okay, so I was like, for all the haters, I'm like, dunk on and give me bad Yelp reviews.
Oh. Okay, we'll just say it's a very common name that hundreds and probably thousands of hairstylists
right. It's like calling yourself the hair cuttery. It's like, I'm the hair cutting Ari, and they're the hair cuttery. Something similar like that, and it's also fucking generic. Actually, I don't think the hair cuttery is generic, but that's besides the point. Anyway, so I ended up leaving, and her son considered himself very much a business coach. He was always trying to get me to like sign up for his business coaching. I actually have a business coach that's really good, and the shit that he was trying to charge, be like, oh, here's all this great information. I'm like, that shit my business coach gives away for free. Like, you're nothing. So, but I was always like, yeah, okay, great, whatever. So he, when I left, he said, listen, you're going to have to change your business name because it's too close to my mother's business name, and she's been in business for 20 years and yada, yada, yada. And I read the email. I had my lawyer, Miss so-and-so, read it, Mandi. And she's like, you don't even have to respond to that. Like, you've had this name for 4 years, 3 years before you ever worked at this place, and he's no one you need to even respond to, because who is he to you? Nobody. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So I didn't read it, or I didn't reply to it. Also didn't change my name. And then I go on vacation for 2 weeks, and when I come back, I no longer have any of my social, my business Google page. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, he can't, how did he do that? He had to fraudulently say that I was a duplicate account in order for them to merge my account and his mother's account. So all of my education I do, all of my pictures, everything now looked as though they were her work or her education, which is bullshit. So
total bullshit.
It is total bullshit. So I emailed him and said, hey, I'm not sure what happened here, but I need to have access back to my page. He's like, you read it 3 times and you never responded. I gave you weeks to deal with this and you didn't do it. I'm like, Mandi, I need help. And so Mandi...
Well, first of all, it's a little fucked up that somebody can just do that, because your business page, you don't pay for that.
Right.
Same with Yelp, but you depend on it.
Right.
For
That's
your
how people find me. If they're looking for a local hairstylist, they put it in, I'll pop up. And I actually pop up as being one of the top ones. So, that being said, he, I had to call Google. I was like, Google, I don't know what the hell is going on here, but, I have a different address, I have a different phone number, I have a different website. She doesn't even have a website. And they're like, oh, well, we don't know. We're like, no, you just merged something without even contacting me. I have a different phone number. Why did you not even contact me? I didn't get an email from you. I got nothing from you. And they're like, sorry. And I pretty much had to get to, different managers for the course of, this took me a week and a half, 2 weeks to deal with. So that takes time out of my day, which is also bullshit. But anyways, so what had happened was he had lied, said it was a duplicate account, and because one section on my website I forgot to update the address and they were the same address, that's the reason they did it. But that was not my main page. They had to find that under contact, which is, just something I forgot to update. Because I'm really good. Once I leave a salon, that address is automatically updated to the new address. Anyway, so he was trying to say, no, I gave you the opportunity to do it. And he was being so smug about it. Like, do you remember? Like,
oh, yeah. The guy was a total douchebag.
He's just like, sorry, I'm really busy. I don't have time to deal with this. You should have dealt with this when you had the chance. I gave you the opportunity. It's like, I don't know who you think you are, but you don't get to just steal people's stuff. Also, yeah, so, like, I had to keep referring back to Mandi to rewrite my emails for me because can be kind of professional, but Mandy's pretty litigious, and she knows the terminology and whatnot.
I wouldn't say I'm litigious, but I can speak litigious.
Right. And that's all that really mattered. So it got to the point where I was just like, listen, you're going to hear from my lawyer if you don't give me access back to my website again. And he's just like, oh, I'm pretty sure you don't have a business license. And we had to come back with, like, you don't actually have to have a business license in the city that we live in. Yada yada. And at the end of the day, it was Mandy's wrote, this is the last communication you and I will be having. If I don't have access to my account within the next week, you'll be hearing from my lawyer and you'll be liable for all of my legal fees. It was pretty great. I wish I should probably read them.
Well, what I had said,
word,
because you it's against the law to impersonate a lawyer, and
right.
I know that, right? However, I was trying to give the really strong impression that you had already been advised by a lawyer. So you used the words like, I've been advised.
Right.
But you didn't say by a lawyer. You
No.
were advised by me.
Right.
I've been advised that, and essentially what we did was we came up with a realistic amount of money that you would have lost for not having anybody have access to your business for that long.
Right.
And threatened to take him to court to have to repay. If we figured it was about $3,500, $4,000,
right.
plus court filing fees, plus all the other fees that we were going to try to sue for if he didn't basically just release
do the right thing.
Your page back to you.
Right.
So it was one of those things where it's like he was trying to be a bully, and we just bullied him a little harder back with the right words,
which
were slightly
misleading,
but not untrue, and not illegal.
Right.
That's a good story.
It was good, and I feel like there was more terminology. Like it was just like for somebody who was just being such an asshole, and again not having any. Because he considered himself a business coach. So for him, this was him business coaching his mother. And in actuality, completely fucked her over. Because in the end, once you've claimed your business site as a duplicate, there's nothing, you can't separate them again. So luckily for me, like I have something like 50 reviews. I have hundreds of pictures of work that I do. She had a few pictures of work. She had 2 reviews that were by her children. So for her to...
Well, she wasn't a very good
hairstylist. I mean, she'd been doing hair for 20 years, but, she's a cookie-cutter hairstylist. So, she can't do the vivid work or the blonding, like the balayage, the stuff that, costs a lot of money to get done. But they had to pretty much give me that whole page back with her reviews and all of her stuff, which frankly I didn't even want, because... Luckily, none of them were bad, but they're not mine, and I'm not one person who's going to, try to take other people's work from them. So she all of a sudden now doesn't have a Google page at all, and she retired shortly after that, which she should have anyways, because like I said, not a very good hairstylist, but but that guy still practices as a business coach. It's like, how shitty of a business coach are you that you don't know the legality of impersonating somebody or fraudulently claiming somebody's site as your own?
Yeah. Big talk. You're a bully.
Right. 100%.
My story is pretty similar to that. I wanted to tell you guys a story about how I rented from... I actually titled this like a slumlord story, but I don't think she was actually a slumlord. Being somebody who... So I'm, in my mid-40s. I've never owned... Well, I shouldn't say never owned, but I've been a renter for 99% of my adult life. I haven't been an owner. I've been renting. I've had a lot of different landlords, and especially when I was younger, in my, late teens and early 20s, I found out the hard way that people take advantage of young kids who are out there renting because we don't know what the fuck we're doing. And there's a lot of people out there who want to take advantage of that. obviously we don't have a lawyer.
Right.
You know, I lived in some shady ass situations with a bunch of my friends, you know, everybody pitching in, living 2 to a room to try to afford the rent, and just getting totally raked over the coals by some serious slumlords. But there's one story I wanted to tell you. I actually don't think she was a slumlord, because she was actually pretty nice throughout the entire time that I rented from her, but how we came to part ways was pretty fucking shitty and pretty fucking shady. So that's the story I wanted to tell. So this is my first landlord when I moved out to Oahu, to Honolulu, and she's a, you know, lady from Southern California who bought a couple pieces of property out there and is using them for an investment by renting, which a lot of people do. And, you know, she was posted it on Craigslist, because that's how we did it back in the day. Honestly, I don't even know how I would find an apartment now, right? Because I've only ever found apartments on Craigslist, and I know that's not how we do it these days. So, you know,
you go to
Facebook Marketplace.
Facebook Marketplace. I'm trying to think of the actor's name. It's long torso. Jeff Goldblum.
Oh.
You go to Jeff Goldblum's apartment.com.
I'm interested in that. Anyway, so that's how I found this place, was that pardon our neighbors, they're moving the garbage cans very loudly in the back of our alleyway. Thank you, neighbors. Anyway, so I found this apartment on Craigslist, and the rent was $2,200 a month for 2 bedrooms, and I'd been living in San Francisco, and that was what my rent in San Francisco was, so it was like on par. My friend had just very last minute, my friend Gregor was like, you know what, I'm in a situation where I'm going to move out with you. Like, my job is coming to an end, or I don't need this job. I don't like this job. My relationship's coming to an end. My lease is coming to an end. Like, I'm just in a perfect spot to go try something new. So I was like, fuck yeah. I've got a buddy to go with me. So I was like, and luckily I had the company that I worked for was paying my relocation for that. So that combined with some other like liquidation that I did, I had enough money to basically pay the first, the last, and the deposit on this place. So that's what, 2,200 times 3 is
right.
a lot. And that's what I sent the check for. And, you know, I'm not stupid, and I'm fairly street smart. And I was living in San Francisco, and I was like, as I wrote that check, I was like, please, God, please be a legitimate apartment, because I'm on the mainland, and I've been to Hawaii twice before, and like, please, God, don't steal my money. Anyways, it turned out to be fine. And I lived at that place for almost 5 years, and everything was fine. You know, shit needed to be fixed. She wouldn't fix it, but she kind of stayed out of our hair, and we stayed out of her hair, and I paid the rent on time, and so everything was fine. But then there was one point where it came to, I had gotten a portable AC unit, which, if you've ever lived in Hawaii or like been to a tropical climate, if you have a portable AC, it like changes your life from like horrible hot swamp ass humidity sometimes to like cold ice palace of solitude.
I was gonna say, what was this the Superman thing?
Fortress of Solitude.
The Fortress of Solitude,
which may also be the nickname for my vagina. Anyway, so I was using this portable air conditioning, and it racks up the electricity bill. Electricity is really expensive in Hawaii, and you know, used it for a couple months. My roommates started to get jealous. They got one, so they're using theirs too. And then right about that time, a couple months after that, the Hawaii Electric Company comes out to disconnect the electricity. And they were like, yeah, we're here to disconnect, you know, unless you pay me $300 right now. And I was like, oh my God, like, okay, here's $300, you know. And I called my landlord. I was like, hey, what's up with this? She's like, oh my God, I must have forgot to pay it, blah, 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 whatever. She's like, just take it out of the next rent check, which this was early in the month. So I was like, okay, you know. So I, you know, gave them extra $300. And shortly after that, she sends me an email saying, hey, it looks like you guys are using portable air conditioners because you have to have a vent that goes outside for the exhaust.
Right, out the window.
Yeah. She's like, it looks like you have a portable air conditioner in there. And I was like, yeah, we have one in each room. Oh, well, you know, that's going to crank up the electric bill. And I was like, well, just tell me what extra we owe and I'll pay it. Like, you know, I didn't see the problem at all, but I wasn't paying for the electricity, right?
Right.
So she comes back and she tells me, oh, you know, it actually says in your lease that you were supposed to be paying the electric bill. This is 4 years after I've signed this lease. you're actually supposed to be paying that, so I'm going to need you to pay me $5,000. And I was like, what the fuck? And that's when immediately, like, my brain kicked in, and I was like, okay, put on your lawyer hat, pretend you're a lawyer. And basically, I did just what I did for you. I was like, listen, like, a precedent has been set. I'm happy to pay whatever you think I owe you for the time that we started plugging in air conditioning. Because I can see how that might have increased the bill, and I want to pay my fair share of that. However, I'm living in a house that you have illegally separated into 3 rental units. You know, I've never brought that up before because I don't give a shit. I get a place to live, whatever. I was like, there's 1 meter for 3 illegal rental units. I was like, you know, let's do some math and figure out what my portion of that is and then what my portion on top of the air condition is. But I'm not giving you $5,000 for back bills. And, you know, the way I worded it obviously was much, you know, more succinct and less, you know, champagne and whiskey driven as I am right now. But basically, you know, we went back and forth a little bit, and I was like, you know, the precedent's been set. I've paid my rent to you on time every month. I've never been late. I've paid the electric bill out of my own pocket. You know, what you're asking for is unreasonable, and I don't think it's fair. You know, I'm willing to offer you $300 based on, you know, dividing that by 3 units, my portion of this from this month and this, and I laid it all out for her, and she's like, well, her response was, well, at the very least, that's what you owe me, so I'll take that check for $300. And I was like, okay, thinking like that's over with. I get an email from her about a week later saying, like, I've decided to terminate your rental contract. You know, I'm thinking about selling the place. It's just not working out. Like, I'm going to terminate. And I was like, oh, the fuck you are. And I was so mad. And it's really hard to find a place to rent in Hawaii. Same as Southern California, same as Northern California. I don't know what it's like where you guys live, but renting in a place is really expensive. And it just goes up exponentially, it seems like, year after year. So I was like freaking out that I had to find a new place to live. And I had come from, the last place I lived in was San Francisco, where we have pretty good rent control laws, and there's a lot of favorability for the tenants in the situation. In Honolulu, it's a little bit different. Basically, your landlord has to give you 45 days notice, meaning the way that it's kind of the spirit of the law is that, like, you don't just get another month, you get like a little bit extra than a month to find a new place to live. And so right on the date, the exact date, the 15th of the month or whatever, she gave me that notice saying, I'm terminating your rental agreement. You have 45 days to move out. And I was like, oh, you know, in my head, I'm screaming. And I sent her an email back that's like, oh, no, it's too bad. You know, laundry list of things that'll have to be done. What color do you want the paint? You know, there's been some wear and tear, you know, being professional and being like responsible and being an adult. And I just happened to be in a situation where some of my friends were looking for a roommate, and I had 2 other roommates at the time, and they happened to find another place too. So we were all just like, you know what, fuck this, because I know she's expecting us to stay the 45 days, get her rent, and then get rid of us and get somebody else in there. I was like, fuck this. Like, the law says that we can move out any date within this 45 days. That's the only protection we have under the law in the state of Hawaii. Like, fuck her, let's go. And so we tore the place apart. We cleaned everything. Well, I did forget to clean the fridge. I admit that. We cleaned everything. We painted. We sanded. You know, there was one email exchange that I read back and forth between us where she's like, I'm going to come over and, you know, inspect the property and whatever, clean up the leaves. And I was like, yeah, be careful of that fence that I emailed you about on this date and this date. It's potentially unsafe and could cause an accident, you know, those kind of things. But I was just basically sticking it anywhere I could. And, so she, you know, we get rid of all of our stuff, forget to clean the fridge. We move out at the very last minute. It was like midnight when, you know, we were really scrambling to try to get it done because, you know, 2 weeks to pack up everything you own. Right. So it's crazy, you know, and she sends me a text message the next morning. She's like, I'm expecting the rent today. And I was like, you kicked me out. Right. Like, you told me to leave, so I'm leaving. Here's my notice. You know, I hope you can sleep at night.
I was like, I can very well, actually.
And I was like,
you're the one who evicted me.
That's exactly what I said. I was like, you evicted me. Like, what do you expect me to do? I found a place to live and I took it. It's pretty stressful having to pack up everything you own and try to find a place to live after living in the same place for 4 years. So that was one of those situations where it's like, if I would have been a kid, I probably just would have you know.
Paid double rent?
Yeah, gotten fucked over and whatever, but being an adult and...
Did she charge you like $45 for 2 peas or something like that was in the freezer?
Well, she did. So I gave her my new address for my rent check, which I gave her my work address because, like, I don't know what kind of crazy shit she's going to do to me. But when I paid her the deposit in the beginning, it was $2,200 because that was the rent. She had raised the rent. Actually, she had actually raised the rent a few times, but the first time she said, the utilities are killing me, I'm raising the rent. And I pulled back up that text message and put that in our email exchange too. I was like, you already are charging me for the utilities.
Right.
That from 3 years ago. You can't just say this now.
Right.
But anyways, that's beside the point. But yeah, she had given me back a lot of my rent deposit, minus a few things, and one of them was there was some peas in the freezer. Because I've cleaned out the fridge, but I forgot to clean out the freezer. That's what it was. There was 2 peas in the freezer, so she's charging me $100 for that.
What an asshole.
And I was like, okay, fair enough. But she forgot that I had paid her $2,200, and she actually gave me the deposit back for $2,500 because that's what my rent was at the end. So it ended up being about even.
Right.
You know, and ended up working fair, but she really tried to fuck me over and ended up just kind of fucking herself over again.
It's karma.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, I fucking love that story. And if you, listener, need any free, I'm saying this in quotations, legal advice, I'd be happy to help you out because I don't want to see people get fucked over. There's a better way to say that.
If you want some free advice of things that could be legal
there
in
you
your
go.
state, potentially,
if you want
Mandi would be happy to compose something for you.
If you want to be advised on something, send your query my way because I will advise you. Right. That's it.
There it is.
Yeah, scratch that whole legal part.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sweet.
We should
or, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps people find us.
It absolutely does. You could also check out our website.
At FHEBadMormons.com.
Wait, we skipped something.
Oh, did we? How to be excellent
to each other, because I had something really important written down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's
we
okay.
Can't edit it, so...
That's fine. I just wanted to take a minute to point out 2 things. First of all, stop posting shit by Donald Trump. Stop posting his statements. Stop posting what he says. There's a reason he was shut down. If you're just reposting all of his shit on either side to make fun of it or not, you're still putting his message out there. So I'm imploring you, internet, please stop posting shit that Donald Trump says.
Yeah.
First of all. Second of all, I just want to put it out there that I would love if we could think of a way to achieve progress in our country knowing that both sides are going to disagree. And the way that I've personally been trying to approach that is, we talked about the social media posts and using the hashtags and stuff like that, but I've also been, whenever anybody comes at me, generally on social media, it's a lot of, fuck you fucking cunt, some bullshit.
Right.
Whatever. It's because there's some amount of anonymity, and they feel safe being like, everything you say is fucking bunch of bullshit, which you'd never say to somebody, a random stranger on the street.
I mean, maybe you would now at this point because you're so used to doing it online.
Maybe.
I mean, I really feel like that's the thing. But,
Yeah.
we just have to stop hating each other and know that just because somebody also, you don't agree with them politically doesn't make them a horrible, horrible person. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are horrible people out there, but, you just can't assume that everybody who doesn't agree with you is a piece of shit.
Well, and one thing I'm thinking of, too, is when you get that kind of hate towards whatever you're saying or your ideology or whatever, if you put it back to them as a question, that kind of tends to diffuse things and make them speak up and iterate what their position is.
Right.
So it's like, I did this all last week on social media. What you're saying is stupid and it's a bunch of bullshit. Which part of that don't you agree with? Because it seems reasonable to me. What is it that seems so crazy to you? And just engage in a dialogue rather than saying fuck you Trump-looking motherfucker, racist white supremacist piece of shit, which is my normal.
So when I was on Twitter the other day and somebody was praising the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse had just been acquitted, and I just wrote fuck off, that was bad.
Yes.
Then I had one guy write a picture of somebody crying saying, oh, is this you? And I said, what was it? I said, your a hateful person, your parents must be very disappointed in you. So things like that are not good to say.
Those are your basic instincts, and that's where we're all coming from. It's like, what does bad religion say? Ancient impulses, ancient instincts that we can't even understand. We're just, we love God, we love our women, we love tradition, we love kin.
But you don't love your women, you love dominating women.
I'm just saying,
I'm just, correcting you.
I know, but I was quoting bad religion on that.
Oh, got it.
But, regardless, yes, those are the things we want to say. And do we take the high road or do we take the tribal primate road? We gotta progress. Or else maybe just an asteroid's gonna hit us and we start all over again. I'm fucking fine with that too at this point.
I mean, it's true. I don't want to survive it. I don't want to survive any of it.
It's not looking good for us.
No. But you know what? Again, let's just remember that we're all people. We all have feelings, and they can all get hurt equally. And the more hurt people. Mm-hmm. So when you've been hurt, you turn around, you hurt other people, and that's just not great. So.
No. And if you don't like hurting people and you have any stories about it, you should send them to our website.
Or our email address at FHEBadMormons@gmail.com.
Did that work? Was that a good segue?
Yeah, it works well enough. Hell, we don't got time to edit this. It airs in 2 hours.
Check out our YouTube. Like, subscribe, share with your friends.
Pinterest. I don't think we've pinned anything, but we could think about doing it.
Girl, I am in charge of the Pinterest. There's tons of pins.
LinkedIn. How about the LinkedIn? How's that going, Mandi?
It's not going so good. Of course, as we mentioned earlier, please, if you have the time, take a moment to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts.
Like and subscribe YouTube, which our patrons will get to watch this lovely episode being aired. And if you had to see my ass the whole time, I just saw my reflection in the mirror, I apologize.
Sorry, not sorry.
You're welcome, actually.
Speaking of becoming a patron, you too can become a patron for only as little as $3 a month.
And if you give us more, we'll give you special favors.
We might give you something special from our friends at exmocandlecompany.com. We might give you some swag. We might give you a picture of something that you don't want to see.
Actually, we had a really good idea for something we were going to give the patrons, like our top tier patrons, that were kind of expensive, but now I can't remember what it was.
I remember. We'll talk about that offline. Anyway, thanks for listening to our podcast.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.